In this video, we are going to talk about top 10 richest people in history. So before starting, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. Everyone aspires to be wealthy, to make a lot of money, and to be included on the Forbes list of the world's wealthiest people. Money does not make you wealthy in the traditional sense, and a crown of gold will not replace the void in your heart, but if you are wealthy, you will be remembered by people all over the world for the rest of your life. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are the richest people on the planet today, with billions of dollars in their respective bank accounts. Yes, it is enormous, to the point where we persuade ourselves that no one has ever achieved such a level of wealth before. However, if we look back through time and attempt to account for inflation, we can discover that there have been even wealthier persons whose fortunes accounted for more than half of the world's total GDP. Here are the top 10 richest people in history. So let's start. Number 10. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is unquestionably one of the most accomplished military leaders of all time, and he was born in Mongolia. As the ruler of the Mongol Empire, which stretched from China to Europe at its height, he commanded the greatest contiguous empire in history, stretching from China to Europe. In spite of his enormous power, however, researchers claim that Genghis never hoarded his wealth. The Khan's generosity, on the other hand, was critical to his ability to wield power. One of the foundations of his success is his willingness to share the riches with his men and other commanders, says Morris Rossaby, a famous professor of history at Queen's College of the City University of New York, CUNY. According to Jack Weatherford, author of Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World, Mongol warriors were prohibited from taking personal loot, which was in contrast to the practice of many pre-modern armies. Every object taken from a conquered territory was inventoried by official clerks, and then distributed among the military and their families after the area had been liberated. Genghis still earned a piece of the riches, but it was a small portion that did not make him wealthy. He did not construct a castle for himself or his family, a temple, a tomb, or even a dwelling, according to Weatherford. A wulgur yurt served both his birthplace and his final resting place. When he died, he was covered in felt, just like any other ordinary person, and then buried. Number 9. Muammar Gaddafi, 1942 to 2011, 200 billion. After being deposed and killed by rebels, the former Libyan colonel and dictator shocked the world in 2011. He had been in power since 1969. He regarded himself as king, proudly displaying his wealth to the entire African continent, while the Libyan people were impoverished and starving. He had enjoyed undisputed control over the largest oil deposits in Africa for the previous 41 years, during which time his investments caused his bank accounts to balloon at an alarming rate. At the time of his death, Gaddafi's personal fortune was believed to be the equivalent of approximately $200 billion, which was held in various banks across the world and in oil investments in the country at the time. Approximately $100 million was spent on the dictator's Airbus A340M, while the 333-meter cruise ship Phoenicia was purchased by the Italian company Mediterranean Shipping Company in 2012 for a total of $697 million. Number 8. Mir Osman Ali Khan, 1886 to 1967, $230 billion. In addition to the diamond, Mir Osman Ali Khan was said to own 50 Rolls-Royces and to have used the diamond as a paperweight in his office. He is also referred to as the Nizam of Hyderabad, the ruler of Hyderabad. As one of the country's 7 Nizams, he controlled Hyderabad until the country was invaded by the neighboring country of India in 1857. He possessed a personal gold collection worth more than $100 million and a jewelry collection worth more than $400 million, which included the famed Jacob diamond, which is now worth $95 million. In addition to having his own public currency, the Hyderabad rupee, and a great private fortune, he was featured on the cover of Time magazine in 1937, where his photograph was also featured. His estimated net worth was approximately $230 billion, making him the wealthiest man in Indian history, according to some estimates. King George VI was a kind ruler who was deeply concerned in promoting education for the public, science and infrastructure development. He mandated that all residents receive a minimum of an elementary education. Furthermore, pursuant to his directive, it was provided at no cost to the impoverished. Number 7. William the Conqueror, 1027 to 1087, $229.5 billion. Known for invading and conquering England, capturing territory and treasure from Sussex to Yorkshire, as well as defeating Earl Harold Godwin's son at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, William the Conqueror lived from 1028 to 1087 and was known as King William I after his victory at the Battle of Hastings. Furthermore, the more kingdoms he conquers, the more riches he accumulates, and this is exactly what he had done throughout his entire life up until that point. At the time of his death, he left his children the equivalent of $229.5 billion in assets. Number 6. Nikolai Alexandrovich Romanov, 1868 to 1918, $300 billion. Nikolai Alexandrovich Romanov is also known as Nicholas II, the last Emperor of Russia and King of Poland and Grand Duke of Finland. He ruled the Russian Empire from 1894 to 1917 when Bolshevik revolutionaries overthrew and murdered him and his family. In 1916, Tsar Nicholas II's net worth was nearly $900 million, which when adjusted with inflation, was equivalent to $300 billion in 2012. At $300 billion, it makes him the sixth richest human in history, and since the Russian Orthodox Church canonized him, he is the richest saint in human history. Number 5. John D. Rockefeller, 1839 to 1937, $341 billion. During the 20th century, this famous billionaire and oil tycoon, John Davison Rockefeller, controlled 90% of the flow of black gold oil. He died in 1937 at the age of 97. The creation of the Standard Oil Company, the largest oil company in the United States. During that time, he owned 90% of all the oil. The company was divided into 34 small businesses. Among these still exist ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP. John D. Rockefeller was also the first man to raise $1 billion. Converted, his fortune would come to about $341 billion. After the First World War, he has spent a lot of money for good causes and invested $250 million in his own organization, the Rockefeller Foundation. Number 4. Andrew Carnegie, 1835 to 1919, $372 billion. The Scottish-American businessman and philanthropist, Andrew Carnegie built his fortune in the 19th century, who died in 1919. Andrew Carnegie left the oil industry to Rockefeller and focused on the steel industry with the Carnegie Steel Company. His fortune is estimated at $372 billion at the time. With his wealth, he built over 1,600 public libraries in the United States. In his eyes, it was important to invest in knowledge, and he also injected tens of millions of dollars into American education. Before he died, Andrew spent the last few years of his life as a philanthropist and donated 90% of his fortune to charities, universities, and other organizations. Number 3. Akbar I, 1542 to 1605, wealth incalculable. Akbar I, also known as Akbar the Great, was India's third Mughal emperor, from 1556 to 1605. His territory was approximately at the level of present-day India and accounted for 25% of the world's GDP. The Mughals used the Mansabdar system. That is, territories over which an officer is appointed to raise income from the land. In return for this income, the emperor may require soldiers depending on the size of the territory. These officers were not chosen hereditarily, which left Akbar a great deal of leeway. Reigning over 15 such provinces, the empire proved extremely beneficial for the emperor for collecting taxes, which contributed to his wealth. Number 2. Augustus Caesar, 63 BC AD 14, $4.6 trillion. Augustus reigned over the Roman Empire from 27 BC to AD 14, after the death of his father Julius Caesar, including Egypt. He was one of the most successful leaders who led the transformation of Rome from a republic to an empire. He is the man behind the Pax Romana and was able to seize the power of a kingdom which also accounted for around 25 to 30% of the world's GDP at the time. In addition, he could count on a personal fortune of around $4.6 trillion. Number 1. Musa Musa, 1280–1337, wealth incalculable. Musa Musa, the ruler of the Malian Empire from 1280 to 1337, is regarded as the richest man in history. He reigned from 1280 to 1337 and is considered the richest man in history. Indeed, he knew how to take Timbuktu and expand his dominion all the way to Niger, so gaining control of the most vital trading routes in the trans-Saharan trade route. He reigned in Timbuktu from 1280 to 1337, and is known as the King of Timbuktu because of his influence on the city's economy and culture during his time there. Aside from that, he held the Bambuk gold mines, which currently account for more than half of the world's gold supply. Its region was responsible for producing half of the world's gold reserves. Consequently, it is not difficult to assume that his wealth cannot be quantified in terms of dollars, euros, or any other monetary unit or currency. The treasure was distributed among the needy in mosques along the route of his pilgrimage to Mecca, which included 60,000 individuals, each carrying roughly 2 kilograms of gold, and dozens of camels, each weighing approximately 125 kilograms, on his trek to Mecca. The Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca is one of the 5 major pillars of Islam, and Musa Musa made the decision to travel to Mecca between 1324 to 1325 as part of his religious obligations. However, it was unlike any other voyage that I had ever had. Musa physically paved his way to Mecca with money, so establishing his empire as a world power. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoy this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.